Welcome to the Sports on Tap NEO High School Football Show. Be sure to join the conversation by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Use the hashtag SOTHSF. Here are your hosts, Rob Trump, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
Welcome to Sports on Tap. We're live from Z's Cream and Bean in Hinckley, Ohio, 2706 Boston Road. And it's right in between four cities, Strongsville, Brunswick, Hinckley, and North Royalton. And
well done, sir.
I know I switched it up a little
bit. Well done.
But it's our Ohio high school football coverage. Week 6 recaps. We cover the Greater Cleveland Conference, the Southwestern Conference, the Suburban League, and much more on the show. So a lot to get through and to go over here tonight.
As always, Week 6, we are 60% of the way done with the football season.
Unbelievable.
It's now, Ed, I think you said you might wait one more week, but it's getting time that we need to start religiously looking at Joe Itel's unofficial but official rankings.
They are official rankings. Let's just call it what it is. This is call it what it is. And Josh and I were. I was discussing with Josh on our way to our game of the week last week.
Yeah.
About whether when I was going to just kind of go just all in on these stats. But hopefully we'll have some. Other things going on next week, which will then hold that out for another week, depending on who may or may not be able to join us next week.
Yeah, and Ed had the opportunity to go to a game with us.
Yeah, it was
last
good
week.
to have you out there for a change, bud.
It was nice. It was awesome.
Nice and cozy up there.
It was, not gonna lie. A nice view. I sat next to a gentleman named Dave and his friend Norm. Dave is actually a Brunswick grad from 1978, but he's been in North Royalton for quite a while. So he goes to all the games and he does the stats. So it was cool being up there and kind of comparing stats with one another too. Seeing who'd you get for those, because the Hudson jerseys are a little bit rough to see.
Yeah, they are
from the top.
The numbers.
They were hard to see on the sideline too. So don't feel bad.
Yeah, but it was awesome. It was awesome.
It was our game of the week, Hudson at North Royalton, and what a great facility they have there. And their hospitality was outstanding. So I want to thank them for having us. And it was a lot of fun. Cover a game there and nice weather.
Yeah, and we also like to thank Barberton High School for. We also had Sean Duffy reporting on the Aurora Barberton game. Barberton came through with a victory in that one. So we'd like to thank Barberton schools for letting Sean sit in on that game and report. And you can see both of our Game of the Week articles, video highlights on our website, sportsontappodcast.com. And Sean's article is actually up on neosportsinsiders.com as well.
Yeah. And before we get started, I want to say what a great job they did writing the article. Sean at Barberton and Aurora and Ed at North Royalton. The details you guys both used in your articles were outstanding. Ed, even gave the recap. He showed the scoring plays, the box score. I'm like, holy cow!
Well, that's Ed's the numbers guy on the crew here. So
nice work.
Thank you.
He was definitely in his element there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He had his stat sheets out, his mini number 2 pencils with his pencil sharpener ready to go.
Very nice.
They had the old slide rule to help me out with some of the math up there. It was pretty clutch. All you kids out there who don't know what a slide rule is, look it up on Google.
Yeah. If nothing else, just look it up on Google. That's what we all say.
Absolutely.
But now let's head into the Greater Cleveland Conference. Josh, Jeffy, what do you have for us in the Greater Cleveland Conference Week 6?
Well, we had 2 games actually played on Thursday this week. The first pitted the Solon Comets against the Brunswick Blue Devils. Solon comes away with a 28-14 victory. Got to give credit to Brunswick on this one, coming off of a 62-0 loss against Menor. Came out and gave up most of the points in the first half. It was actually 28 nothing at the half, 28-7 at the half. Excuse me on that one, Ed. 28-7, but they did hold Solon. They held them at bay in the second half. Like I said, all points in the first half were for Solon, and big plays were the name of the game for this one. The scoring drives for Solon, the times were 1:15, 2 minutes 37 seconds, 14 seconds, and 38 seconds. And they were led by the dual quarterback combo threat of Carver and McQuaid. Both quarterbacks combined for 337 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Also, the run game, those big plays really hurt Brunswick. But like I mentioned, they came out in the second half, and the defense really showed up for Brunswick. They held Solon to only 1 first down in the second half and 24 yards of total offense in that second half. So kudos to them. On offense, Brunswick was led by Ethan Flanagan. 23 carries, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also added 5 receptions for 48 yards. So some positives to build on for this Brunswick team. You know, they're developing. Coach Pinzoni, I think we all knew coming into this year, this was a rebuilding year or even a building year. 7 years away from the program, having to come back and actually build it up again. So you're going to have your ups and downs, your peaks and valleys. And last week against Menor was definitely a valley. And now maybe they're starting to come up. They have a very winnable game this coming Friday when they will host Elyria. Solon will have to travel to Euclid. That's going to be a very big game in the GCC. Euclid opening up another stadium, or a new stadium. They're actually opening up this Friday. So there's going to be a lot of hoopla around that game, a lot of celebratory items for the Panthers. So hopefully Solon can go in there for their sake and really buckle down and get a very important victory that could eventually lead to championship aspirations for either team in that one. Solon with this victory improves to 5-1 overall, 3-0 in the GCC. Brunswick drops to an even 3-3 overall, 1-2 in the conference. As we mentioned earlier, Brunswick will host Elyria. They actually notched their first victory of the season this past Thursday with a 31-28 victory over Shaker Heights. Now, give props to Elyria in this one. They were down 20-0 into the second quarter. The first 3 scores of the game were by Shaker Heights. Jameer Demukes hit McCaw Hillis for 3 touchdown receptions in this one. Elyria then closed the gap to 20-14 at the half. Elyria would then score the next 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Shaker did score late in this game, but it was not enough as Elyria once again went on to a 31-28 victory over Shaker. Now, just some quick numbers in the game for Shaker Heights. Demukes was 15 for 25 for 320 yards, 3 touchdowns. He added a rushing touchdown in that one. McCall Hillis with a big game, 7 receptions, 117 yards, 3 touchdowns. For Elyria, they were led by their all-around good quarterback, Dante Beckett, 347 total yards, 3 touchdowns. Devian Williams, 5 receptions, 139 yards, and 1 touchdown. Those were the leaders on offense for the Pioneers. They improved to 1-5 on the year. They notched their first victory, not only overall, but their first conference victory, 1-2 on the year. Shaker drops to 3-3, and a disappointing 0-3 in the GCC. Now, guys, as we talked earlier in the year, Shaker Heights was my team to look out for as a team that could possibly make the jump. I can't lie to you. I'm a little disappointed in how they are so far. They've been playing some tight games for sure, but they've just not had enough to get over the hump. And once again, starting in the conference with an 0-3 record is not a very good way to start the conference season.
Yeah, I think every year it seems like they get out to a really quick start, and then when you jump into conference play, it's like a deer in headlights where they just don't know what to do. They struggle a little bit. But when you have a player like Demukes at quarterback and their leader, you'd think he'd be able to really carry the team and build that confidence up. And they're just struggling right now. And when you look at Elyria, they are 1-5. But if you look at the teams they've lost to, every team except Avon Lake was 5-1. And Avon Lake's 4-2 this year. So Elyria's lost to a lot of very good teams. looking ahead, they'll have a little bit easier of a schedule, I say, to end the game or end the season, other than with Menor at the last game.
Well, I'm not worried about Menor with them because they've beaten Menor before at home. So if they needed one a couple of years ago and they got them. So I mean, if Elyria can get on a little bit of a roll here, admittedly hopefully not at the expense of my Blue Devils.
Yeah.
They can pick up some massive points. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Menor looks fantastic right now. It's tough for anyone to stop them, let alone Elyria. But you can never count Elyria out at all during the course of the season. The thing with Solon, I want to go back to the Solon Brunswick game real quick. The thing with Solon, and it's something I discussed this with one of their coaches a little bit before the game. We're catching up on things, and he mentioned that the big play has been their bread and butter. He did say that they have struggled to sustain drives, and that is exactly what happened on Thursday night. When Brunswick was able to lock them down and get them to third down situations, they weren't able to convert very well. I think they scored one of their touchdowns on a third and long or something like that. But for the most part, as you said in the second half, Josh, Brunswick was able to put the clamps on them. The problem is they dug a little bit too big of a hole, and we weren't able to get out of it. And Solon did the same thing to Strongsville the week before. So Solon's been able to get these big plays and get them early, and they've been afforded the opportunity to ride that out as they go through their schedule. You have
two tough games coming up. Euclid, Menor for them.
Yes,
so they're going to have to really work on sustaining drives and running long, sustainable scoring drives if they want to compete. Because if you're going to try and go match big play for big play with teams like Euclid and Menor, you're not going to come out on top because those teams can match your big play ability for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if they can bring the same defensive effort that they brought against Stowe Monroe Falls, they'll give themselves a chance for sure, especially against Euclid. Menor, Menor's right now, I think, on a different planet. And maybe this could be because I saw them at really their peak efficiency against Brunswick.
Right. And
admittedly, we didn't play very well. So I mean, there could be a little bit of a halo effect there, but. I know you'll get into the next, Menor's opponent for this past week, but Solon's got their next two games will really determine if they're gonna win this conference or not for sure.
Right, exactly. Speaking of Menor, they will actually travel to Shaker Heights this Saturday, where Shaker Heights will host Menor, and as we mentioned before, Elyria will travel to Brunswick. Menor again, 49-14 victory over Medina this past week. Menor improves to 5-1 on the year, 3-0 in the GCC. Medina drops to 2-4. They are 1-2 in the GCC. Again, Menor came out firing on all cylinders. It was 35-0 at half. In the first half, Menor on offense, 51 plays, 23 first downs, and that's just in the first half. They were led by Chris Edmond. For the game, he had 23 carries, 149 yards.
They had 23 first downs in the first half?
Yes.
Jesus.
23 carries, 149 yards, 4 touchdowns in the game for Chris Edmond. Medina just managed 29 yards passing total for this game. Their 2 scores came from Levi Pokersnick, 2 touchdown runs. Now, he's the quarterback, but he rushed in 2 touchdowns. But, again, this was all Menor on this one. I mean, if you want to think about it, for a game and a half, they outscored their opponents 97-0.
Wow.
In a game and a half. So they shut out Brunswick 62-0, and for the first half of the Medina game, it was 35-0. So Menor is on a roll. They're looking to continue that. They will travel to Shaker. Medina will play host to Strongsville. Speaking of Strongsville, the final game in the GCC for Week 6, Strongsville ends up coming up short in a very close back-and-forth game against Euclid. Euclid 38-30 with the victory. Euclid improves to 5-1 in the conference. 5-1 overall, 3-0 in the conference. Strongsville drops to 2-4. They are 0-3 in the conference thus far. Euclid was led in this game again by Ronald Lee. 22 carries, 222 yards, 4 touchdowns. That puts him over the 1,000-yard mark with 4 games left to go in the season. and he did play some of this game with a shoulder stinger, but it didn't seem to keep him out of the game for too long. Now, Euclid trailed actually in this game 25-21 at the half. Again, the back and forth continue the whole second half. Joe Gillette filled in for the injured Johnny Major, who were suffering from concussion-like symptoms. He went through and really played well, not only throwing the ball but running the ball. He had over 100 yards rushing. And this one came down to the very end. It was fourth down. Gillette threw to the end zone, came up short. Euclid was able to stave off their drive and come away with the victory, 38-30 against Strongsville. Next for Euclid, as we mentioned, they open up a brand new stadium. They will play host to Solon. Strongsville will travel to Medina. Now, Week 6 in the books. Now we move on to Week 7. We go to Joe Itel, the man, the myth, and the legend. So the standings as they go right now, according to Joe Itel, in Division 1, Region 1, Menor will sit at number 5. Solon at number 7. Those two would be in the playoffs. Remember, top 8 teams make it. Euclid just on the outside looking in at number 9. Strongsville 13. Shaker 14. In Division 1, Region 2, unfortunately, all the teams in Region 2 will be looking into the playoffs, not participating if the season were to end today. Brunswick sits at number 10. Medina at number 17. And Elyria at number 18. So, guys, a nice week in the GCC. Looking forward to Week 7. There's some pretty interesting games lined up. That wraps it up for Week 6 in the GCC.
But when you look at Brunswick, they have 3 losses, and they're at number 10. The top 8 teams win. They do play Euclid, which is, I think, their remaining, really tough opponent. But then they play teams like Strongsville, Medina,
and Elyria.
And Elyria. All can go either way, really.
All these games. You would think, just looking at it in the game against Euclid, probably Brunswick would be somewhat of the underdog. But these other 3 games in there, they are toss-ups. This is where you, and we talked about it all the time when it comes to the GCC. You have to bring your A game every game because any team in this conference can beat you. And as a prime example, it's gonna be interesting for everyone because now we're getting to the playoff seeds and victories in this conference equal a lot of points. So every victory counts for sure.
Yeah, you need help from your beaten opponents, right? So right now, if you're looking at Brunswick, you need Austintown and Canada Prep to start winning some games.
Yeah.
There's no other way around that one. And Austintown traditionally wins about 6 to 7 games every year. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. And they took a tough loss to Massillon, Washington this week. They're going to go to Ashtabula and play Lakeside in Week 7. They're going to come back home, play McDowell, Pennsylvania. So Austintown has a pretty good schedule, and if they're able to get a couple more of those games, that'll help Brunswick out immensely. If you look at the point differential, though, between where Brunswick is and we're at 10 and where Dublin-Kaufman is at 8, you got almost 3 full points there. We're at the point now where you can make those up and pretty quickly. But as you guys said, Brunswick only has one more game against a team with quality wins on their resume, and that's Euclid. And right now, if you're Brunswick, you need Shaker Heights to start winning.
Yeah.
And if you can take down, well, obviously you got to get Elyria. Then Elyria's got very winnable games afterwards. If you can get Euclid, then Medina
you can get some points there with Euclid.
Exactly. I mean, 7-3 would probably get you into the playoffs. If you go 6-4, say we lose to Euclid and get Medina and Strongsville in addition to Elyria, you're at 6-4. Then it comes down to those second level points. And that's where you're going to need the help from Austintown and Canada Prep, and the teams that you already beat. So that's a big thing for Brunswick right now. I mean, you're almost you have to win out almost to really guarantee your spot to try to get into Week 11.
It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah,
but they have a chance to. I mean, 3 losses at number 10 right now. A little past halfway through the season. It's not bad.
No, I mean, given where we were last year, I can't really, given where we were last year. Right now, we still have a shot, and that's really, with a new program, as you already said, with the new regime in charge, if you can continue to kind of hang around, keep that carrot out there.
It's a very big building block going into next year as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, great job, guys, and